So with the recent delay announcement of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 being moved to spring of 2023, there is a lot of Zelda fans, myself included, wondering whether or not we will see Nintendo stick to their traditional formula of releasing one Zelda game per year, and there's a lot of hype and speculation online right now around what those games might be. And in today's video, I want to walk down memory lane together, boot up a port that I would love to see make it to Nintendo Switch one day, and have a broad conversation on what, if any, Zelda games we can expect to hit the Nintendo Switch in 2022. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, I'm hyped to make today's video because clearly if you've been around on the channel, you will know there is a ton of different talk and rumors, speculation, all of that going on right now in the world of what are we going to get Zelda-wise in 2022 on the Nintendo Switch. And I figured I'd take this opportunity, it's a little light news day today to begin with, to boot up a game that, it's hard to believe, but guys, this game is almost 10 years old, otherwise known as Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. This came out in 2013. I played it immediately on the 3DS after release. I did just create a file and get to essentially what I would consider like the start of the fun of this game, because of course any Zelda game, whenever you start off, you do have a lot of the story set up, you have to get some basic items, and I think I'm getting right to where I'm about to go to the first dungeon, if memory serves me correctly, which I have to remember how to get there. But I figured it'd be fun to play this, talk about kind of like, or can we expect a 2D Zelda? Because, you know, obviously Jeff Grubb caused a lot of the talk in terms of whether or not we're getting those heavily rumored and long-awaited Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD ports to the Switch, is that's a game that he apparently knows is in the works. Multiple other people have said that as well. He's not the only one. And it just seems like to him it would make sense for that to be the game. However, he did say if it's not that or some other Zelda thing, which we have known Grezzo to work on games like Link's Awakening remake that they did for the Nintendo Switch, and there was heavy rumors that they may be working on something like maybe the Oracle games, and the Oracle of Ages and Seasons may be brought over. Maybe it's not a remake at all and we get a new top-down Zelda for the first time, or maybe it's a Link Between Worlds. I mean, there's a number of different possibilities. While I think Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD are probably the most hyped titles and the ones that most fans want to see, there is also a ton of love and nostalgia that I have for these classical I guess you could call this 2.5D, but basically your overhead view of Link really takes me back, because if you guys aren't aware, this is not a remake of A Link to the Past, but it's heavily inspired due to the fact that it's basically taking place in the same Hyrule with some brand new mechanics added in, because you can actually, at a certain point in the game, I'll get the ability to go onto the wall as like a 2D style Link, and that creates some very fun puzzles and different challenging things that you have to figure out on how to get out of a certain room or go into a different area. A very fun game through and through. Again, hard to believe it's over 9 years old now, but it is. And this is one that, you know, got made directly for the 3DS, was a fan favorite immediately, and then it's just stayed there. So whether or not this needs to be reworked as a port, or maybe one day Nintendo figures out a way to let us play our DS and 3DS games on modern hardware like the Switch or Switch 2 or whatever they end up coming out with next, that all remains to be seen. But one thing that up to this recent generation that Nintendo was very good about with just about all their consoles was a way to play the previous generation console, and then all the way up till the GameCube, you could actually easily play their entire handheld library as well, which made for, you know, I mean, that's how I got exposure to many of the handheld games, because I've just always been a console gamer. And for me, if I have to play a handheld, I probably play it while I'm traveling. Or in this case, I was so hyped for this game's release after seeing the trailers, I did play through the entire thing on my 3DS XL. But it's something that I always prefer to play on a TV when possible. And that was something that, you know, now in the Switch era, we rely on things like Nintendo Switch Online to essentially allow us to play these older classic games. But with that, you miss out on certain ones because they're not bringing all of the systems like the GameCube and like the DS and 3DS. And obviously those are harder to pull off with the dual screen mechanic. And that's why I think it might just be the path to actually go ahead and remake and remaster some of these, because I think they'll sell great in today's modern era. So I'm still hopeful. Assuming I probably have to shoot something with my bow here. I'm still hopeful that we do end up getting the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, But all things considered, if we get anything Zelda, and even if it's something like this, I would be elated and more than happy. Oh, okay, I'm just, yeah, you know, you gotta just do the obvious things here in the Zelda games, because we got a bow as our first item to get in here, and of course, a lot of the initial puzzles are going to rely on the bow. That's always kind of like a, you know, an easy mindset to have on these Zelda games. And the 2D Zelda games just have a different vibe and feel to them altogether. And that's why I'm not opposed to getting another one. Like, even, and not to mention the fact that we haven't had a fresh one since this A Link Between Worlds. So we're really talking quite some time now since Nintendo's given any love to that 2D style of Zelda game in terms of creating a new one from the ground up. And clearly we're in a different era now with the Switch basically being a hybrid console where you're talking about handheld and primary, like, mainline games as well, because clearly back in the day they would develop a number of different Zelda games just to be made specifically for handheld, which is why we got games like Link's Awakening, the Oracle games that we have yet to see make a return, and all of that. So, you know, now we're in a scenario where we really they don't need to do that anymore the way that they did before. This is a time deal, so let's see if I get it. So so it's one of those things where, you know, we're kind of seeing a change in Nintendo's typical formula when it comes to Zelda development. However, I do think that it's worth having the conversation of, okay, since we have the mainline Zelda, what are those other teams doing? Are they just strictly sticking to remakes and remasters, or can we expect a brand new from the ground up, this style overhead Link adventure again, you know, on a modern Zelda game? And if that happens, it's a day one purchase for me. A good way to tell if you guys haven't played this game, or, you know, maybe want to go back and play it, a good way to tell if you'll be into it or not is, I would say, if you enjoyed Link's Awakening on the Switch, and if you don't have that game, definitely get that. That's like the first handheld Zelda ever made, and they did a fantastic job with the remake. But go ahead and get that. See if you enjoy the puzzle style, the pacing of the game and things, because that is truly, this just teleported me back to the start, didn't it? I don't think I missed anything else up here. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. So, you know, the pacing of these 2D style Zelda games, or 2.5D, whatever you want to call them, are all very similar, and the dungeon layouts and how you navigate and figure out puzzles, very similar, just yet different. Oracle games are probably, I would say, my two favorite 2D Zelda games, in terms of, I mean, not counting like A Link to the Past, but I mean in terms of handheld 2D Zeldas, I should clarify. That's where I think the most nostalgia for me lies. Not to mention that was just a super unique concept to have like two different games kind of talk to each other, and you could progress the story even further if you did certain tasks in one. And then I think you had to use the link cable to make your Game Boy files talk to each other, or maybe it was a code system. Somebody let me know in the comments. It may have actually been a code system is what they used to allow you to talk to, you know, you could basically progress the game and fight an entire final boss that I won't spoil for you guys in case you haven't played it. If you actually do progress to a certain area and do certain side quests in the other game, which I just thought was like the coolest mechanic ever. This game, talk about amazing puzzles and things to offer. We're not even to the point where we can, you know, go into the 2D Link on the wall yet, but there's already great puzzle games to be had. So in terms of the rumors and leaks, to tackle that part of the conversation, I am very much a believer that something Zelda is coming in 2022. There's been a lot of rumor talk with the Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD, and I think because it's been so long now, it causes a lot of fans to feel like, well, this is probably not happening. We would have seen it as part of the 35th anniversary. But would we have? Because you know that Nintendo rather would absolutely want to, you know, fully maximize. Do I have a key here? No, I don't. Fully maximize the sales of Skyward Sword HD, and do they do something like release essentially three of the best, or some of the best 3D Zeldas of all time in the same year? Like, that sounds less like Nintendo, although I was very much, to take full ownership, a believer that we might see that happen and just get a Zelda blowout year, because Mario had a fantastic 35th anniversary, and I still feel like we didn't get not even a fraction of what he had. And I'm clearly a little bit turned around here on where I need to be going. We'll figure out, we probably missed a key somewhere, and then we need to come back here. But, you know, I do think that, so a lot of the rumors started, of course, you originally believe Andy Robinson from VGC, a gaming journalist, you know, when Skyward Sword got announced, he said, well, Zelda fans, sit tight. Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are absolutely coming this year. That was in 2021. And so, you know, for basically to not be disappointed, we're at least getting, he kind of jabbed it at a Skyward Sword saying we're at least getting one good Zelda game in 2021. Well, then that didn't happen, and he went back on record and update, you know, essentially said it's a fool's game to actually try to predict what Nintendo's doing, and he should have never used 100% in terms of his prediction on those games coming out for the year of 2022 and then or 2021 rather, and he said Zelda fans, sit tight. Well, then you have, you know, Jeff Grubb also talking about that he knows about them. It may or may not have been hinted from Emily Rogers. Nate the Hates definitely had discussion around them. And regardless of if you believe the leaks and rumors part of it, it's just logical. Nintendo's not going to leave those games to die on the Wii U when the HD remasters are essentially done. I mean, yes, you have to rework some stuff with the controller being tied to the gamepad, but it's essentially done. I mean, we're not talking about a from the ground up thing here. And I really got to figure out what I'm supposed to do because I just came in a giant circle. Yeah, and we've tried the same stuff over and over. It's not working. I got to find a key somewhere. Hold, please. I will figure out what's going on just so I'm not stumbling around in the same area over and over, and then we will come back to this conversation. Well, it seems like where I was hung up on is just that orb right there. I can shoot it from here, but of course I did not think about that, and I was running around like an idiot that whole time. But that's part of the thing when you talk and play video games, guys. I will tell you, I have zero capacity to figure out puzzles. Like, if the puzzles are somewhat obvious, I can talk and play, but if the minute they become like where you got to stop and think about it for a section, for a minute, I literally have to take a minute and process what's going on. But to continue our discussion on these rumors, I do think that it's something that, so after they didn't happen last year, everybody was extremely let down, myself included. Definitely wanted to get a surprise announcement for Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. But then you had, you know, people like Jeff Grubb stating that, well, yes, they're still real, but I think Nintendo's saving them in the scenario that they need more development time for Breath of the Wild 2, which of course would make sense, so that way they keep to their trend of one Zelda game per calendar year like we've historically seen them stick to. And of course, we recently got that announcement that Breath of the Wild 2 is indeed delayed until spring of 2023. And so it just makes a lot of sense to have a major Zelda game hit store shelves towards their 2022 lineup of games. It's not that the lineup of games isn't fantastic already, but I just think they're going to stick to their Zelda tradition of releasing one per year on the Nintendo Switch. And it's either got to be something like a remake of these 2D classic games, like Oracle games, maybe a Link to the Past, probably less likely on that one. Or it's got to be something where, how do we get back to this other room with the key? I have a map down in the right corner that you guys can't see, but that's one of the other beautiful things about the DS era. I guess this doesn't connect through directly. The DS era of gaming is you always had your map readily available. I think I can get back from this way from the looks of it. So anyway, you know, it's one of those things I think it's highly likely we get something Zelda. I'm not going to put all of this, the hopes and dreams into it being Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, because maybe it's not, and we're not confirmed to be getting those at all. I do think they hit the Switch at some point before the end of the Switch's life cycle. It's just a matter of when. And then I also think that this year we're getting something Zelda. Just what it is all up for debate and speculation, but something Zelda, highly likely in my opinion. And if you guys aren't too familiar with this game's like story and stuff, like the Hyrule Low Rule type of deal with, I mean, it's such a great, this really, they put in a lot of love and care to this as a 2D Zelda. And I just think that we still need to see these 2D Zeldas coexist alongside 3D Zeldas because they're just different experiences. This is clearly not a Breath of the Wild type of experience. This is something different, but it's unique and it's incredible in my opinion. So I just really hope that we see Nintendo stick to this, you know, co-developing a mainline 3D Zelda and then do something in the realm of the 2D or 2.5D world. Now, we may or may not be able to make it to the boss in interests of time, but I at least got the boss key or the big key. I'm not sure what they call it in this game. I think it said boss key. Regardless, I got that, and we're basically poised to probably do another puzzle or two and then figure out the way into the boss room. So it might actually be here, right here. So let's see if we can quickly fight him, and then we'll probably call it after that. But I definitely want to know your guys' opinions on this, because this is clearly a highly debated subject online, very divisive, because, you know, whenever you're talking about a series like Legend of Zelda, well, there's just clearly so many years and years of hardcore fans that have been created, like myself included, being Ocarina of Time, my first full Zelda game that I went through and experienced, and the kind of nostalgia that I have for that title, and then all of the other games that came to follow after that. You really care about getting an ability to replay some of the classics, and you obviously want the new adventures as well. And I just hope we see Nintendo continue to really do stuff in the way of supporting their old games library, whether that be through NSO, regardless. I'm assuming I'm probably gonna fire an arrow at this guy. Yeah. Guy or girl, I'm not actually sure. I can't remember on the exact storyline for this game, because it's been so long. That's another thing, is like going back and playing this, like I would not have waited, because I think I played this and completed it 100% one time, and then I literally never played it again. So for me, you know, it's like, if there's not an easy way to play the game, the reality is I'm probably just not gonna, you know, go out of my way to play it unless I'm really feeling nostalgic for it for some particular reason. So that's why, you know, if this thing was on the Switch, yeah, try and stop me, I would have absolutely I would have played it many more times by now. So again, that's my personal hope. I hope that we see Nintendo do stuff like somehow bring over their 3DS library of games, their DS library of games, make it all playable on one console, or just slowly work on ports over the course of time, so we have the marquee Zelda games and the classic Zelda games. And you guys will see the little 2D cutscene here as I apparently transform into the wall mechanic for the first time, and I'm probably in danger here, but I know ultimately it obviously works out. But we're gonna go ahead and call the video here, guys. I want to hear from you at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and speculation. What are we getting, if anything, Zelda in 2022? Do you think it's Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD? Do you think it's a combo pack or standalone releases? And or bonus question, do you think it's more likely something to be like a 2D remake or remaster, maybe a Link Between Worlds, or maybe the Oracle game? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Make sure you check out yesterday's video if you haven't already, where we discussed the surprising story leak that hit for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, coming directly from an Italian voice actor that actually worked on that game. And I think he pretty much spilled the beans on something he was not supposed to talk about, and it opens up a nice conversation of potential time travel possibilities that may take place in the game. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.